everybody. Get everybody jumping on soon. Excited for today's guest. Very good. Dr. M, she's a clinical psychologist. You know how much I love talking to people in this space about mental health and deeper awareness. So I'm super stoked to have Dr. M join us. Hopefully, oh, there we go, the psychologist and me. She has a very cool Instagram page and a lot of things that deep, and I can't wait to get started with her because I am definitely deep in a lot of better modalities. Hi, Dr. M.
Hi.
How are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
I am so honored to have you on. I love your Instagram page, and it really resonated and deeply aligns with a lot of the things I think people are talking about right now. People are talking about mental health. It isn't so taboo anymore. And, you know, you deep dive on a lot of things, and let's just get right into it. First and foremost, a question that I wanted to ask you, when it comes to setting boundaries and speaking up for our needs, where do we even start? Because you talk about this on your page, and this is something I think in my past I've definitely struggled with, and I feel like it resonates a lot with women in my field. So how would you suggest where to start when advising a client?
Yeah, it's tricky. And I think you've totally hit the nail on the head, is that it's harder for women to advocate for ourselves because of how we are worried about how we'll come across to other people. We don't want to be that kind of woman, or we don't want to be taken like, yeah. We don't want to be overly assertive because that means something. We don't want to be too passive because that means something else. We don't want to be pushy. There's so many issues that, like, if a woman sets a boundary in a certain way, it's going to come across differently than if a man is just like, oh, I'm not available. And that's a really, really sticky place to be. So where do you start with that? And like boundaries, I talk about on my page a lot. They don't have to be with other people. A lot of the most effective ways you can start to set boundaries in your own life are with yourself and those immediately around you. So for example, if you're like, okay, I'm feeling exhausted after a long week and it's 2 p.m. on a Friday, and you're like, I just want to go to sleep after work today, but my friends are meeting me. It's a big deal. It's been organized. And then you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll have that coffee now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then later comes out and you're just like, my body was telling me I don't want to go out, and I pushed it, and now I'm feeling frazzled, and now I'm feeling guilty, and I can't set that boundary with myself, and everything just kind of explodes. And so boundaries, like with yourself, can be like, no, we're not having that extra coffee. We're going to prioritize our needs. And maybe today that need is to sleep. Maybe that need is to push yourself at the gym. Maybe that need is to take it easy. So that's a really good place to start, is how do you boundary yourself to meet your needs in that moment, knowing that your needs are like normally, naturally all over the place all of the time, but kind of like, how do you work with that? So that's kind of where we would start with boundary work in general.
Well, and it's, you know, Dr. M, a therapist, my kind of gal, because we don't even know we're impeding on our own boundaries. I mean, you mentioned which is what I'm working on, is getting into your body and really honoring how it's feeling when in certain spaces, when around certain people. And for instance, like a great thing with me in my career, and a lot of people in the sports broadcasting industry, as broadcasts, we have crazy hours. We're working, you know, not your average 9 to 5. We're working sometimes an overnight shift. Sometimes a crazy long game goes extra innings, hypothetically. And so what we do is we totally forget about what we need, and we do take that extra coffee shot. I mean, I know a lot of people that drink Monster energy drinks, nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
are they doing it to get the extra push, or do they need to actually kind of go, like, where can I set myself up a little bit where, yes, this is the nature of the beast. Like, I do work in an industry that requires for me to have focus long periods of time, and sometimes, but like, that's been some of my work, is go like, no, actually I need to take a break, or go and do some breath work somewhere by myself, because I was having burnout. I mean, I was having panic attacks. My body was basically just saying, you are on overload. I was dealing with a lot of personal family stuff with my family, my father. And it was like, I was like, basically, I will remove myself and I will take care of everybody else. And it was becoming a lot for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're not alone. I hear that in the majority of my clients, that's the flavor. And sometimes I wonder, I mean, I feel it in myself, in my work too. And I have to really be boundaried about how much I take on and how much, because, you know, the nature of the work affects how you operate as a person. Mm-hmm. And so part of me wonders if, like, we have a hard time pushing back, mm-hmm. or are we just, like, as in a society, like, are we just being asked to do too much? You know, like, are we meant to work 9 to 5? Are we meant to burn the midnight oil? Are we meant to have a side hustle? You know, and I think, and I noticed that I've been in the UK a long time now, but, you know, when I go back to the States, there's this, like, push harder, faster, bigger, better, more. Mm-hmm. You know, this idea that, like, the harder you push, the better you will be. And the more you will have, the more you will be proud of, the more will stand for your name or whatever, you know. And of course, to get there, you have to neglect part of yourself. You know, when you're tired, an athlete is meant to show up and to do those 2-a-days because other people are. And if you're an elite, whatever in your field, you are pushing. And in order to push, you kind of have to push through a lot. And so I don't know if it's like we're, you know, the achievers of the world, or the people who want to go out there and do something meaningful with their lives are just burying a lot of this.
Yeah, right.
And then it eventually comes out, you know?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, you take Michael Phelps, for instance, you know, I mean, he's a great guy who's achieved a ton in his respective field. And I'm so grateful, has created a much more open platform to discuss what he went through. You know, Naomi Osaka has chosen to bow out of tennis matches to take care of her mental health. Simone Biles with the Olympics. And so I think we're starting to see that it's okay to, and I know this is a used phrase a lot, to not be okay, but we must, you know, and that's why leaders, we count on you so much in, like, you know, in high up corporations, because do they have their finger on the pulse of what is going on? And yes, at the same time, I think we need to worry less about our perception, which, by the way, hard, especially as a female, right? We want to make everybody feel welcome and cohesive. So when we do speak up and say, hey, I'm not feeling so great, or hey, I need to do this, or hey, I need to do that, we're terrified. We're terrified of thinking we've let people down. We're terrified of being deemed the B word, right? Or just anything that we've worked so hard to get past that glass ceiling, and now we've disrupted something, and that is a terrifying place to be.
It is. And I think, like, I mean, a lot of my friends are going through the same thing. It's like we're having this, I don't know if it's a paradigm shift in the way that we think about work and productivity. And, you know, a lot of the antidotes to overworking and burnout is like, don't work harder, work smarter. Okay, that's great. But it also takes a lot of mental headspace to be efficient. And in this, I mean, we've completely discounted the importance of having downtime and unstructured time, it's a well-studied area. There's, the back burner effect of your brain where it is more efficient if it's not like looking at a problem head on. And so maybe working smarter is taking a walk at midday to keep thinking about the thing that you're thinking of. But you're like, you know what, I can't sit at, for me, if I'm writing and if I've got writer's block and some things due, that there's no point in sitting down and trying to work on something when it's not there. I'm just going to exhaust myself. I'm going to get frustrated. I'm just going to, that might snowball into a whole other load of things about how I feel about myself or how I feel about my work or how I feel about how capable I am in that moment. And all I needed was some fresh air. And I just needed to look after myself first. And then, halfway through that walk, you're like, solution. That's
Yes. Yes.
And yet, like when you see people midday walking around, you don't think, oh, maybe they're working on a problem that can't be solved in that very moment, or you're folding the laundry, or you're doing something to look after yourself. They're like, well, what is that slacker? Why are they walking around midday? Like, don't they have a job? Don't they know, what are they doing?
Yeah.
So it's this weird association with downtime and what that means for that person.
Yes. And if you're not able to get to know yourself better and to know what you need, you can't create the boundaries or the downtime or the stillness. And a lot of times I get my best ideas when I'm doing acupuncture or breath work. And when I am feeling tired, my instinct is not to go. And, for those of you that, I think we use meditation a lot as a word, and, a lot of books I'm reading, a lot of current literature, a lot of language you see on TV, Netflix, like mindfulness is an interesting practice because when I'm tired, Dr. M, I go for the shot of espresso. And what I'm noticing that if I just take 5 minutes to pause and breathe and just get still, I find a new wave of energy. But it's uncomfortable. It is like uncomfortable for me to be still or for me to not continue to push forward because yes, I am I was an athlete growing up. And so my nature is to think failure automatically rather than give myself permission, And so that's the work. I think right now we're seeing, like you said, an awakening that that maybe the pandemic created. A lot of discomfort and trying to ask the questions of why am I so uncomfortable right now?
Totally. And like, I think about, trying to think of like the best way to say this. And obviously after a long day, my words are going. But like there's this constant pressure to think that, oh, I have a minute. This minute must be productive. Or I have a minute, so I must use this to advance in some way. And so we tend to say, you know what, well, I'm going to use this minute. If you're an athlete, okay, you can do extra squats while you're waiting for your espresso. Okay, fine. You can, snack on writing. Like I was advised to, like, just write a little bit every day. That worked for them. Doesn't work for me. But, like we lose sight of what's important for us. And I think this is part of the burnout and part of the overwhelm is that we have to pick in that very moment or in that transition in life, in that phase of life, what matters to us. And this is constantly changing because of like what you said before, like family stuff happens, global pandemics, there are wars, there are other fires, breakups, actual moving house, too much traffic on one day, all of these things can tip the scales, but we can't do it all. And I've admired the people that love to lean into everything. But not everyone can do that. And for the people who can't, you have to focus on what matters, and you have to boundary your time around that. So if you notice, for example, that your sympathetic nervous system gets involved at certain moments of the day. And then you think, oh, I'll put this out with some coffee. And it gets worse. And this is messages that your body is giving you of like, this is too much. And we're like, yeah, whatever. I'm fine. I'll push through. Yeah, whatever. And then, you know, the little heart palpitations turn into something more. And then we think, oh, we'll just beat it with a jog. And there you are, mid-jog, panic attack. And so we ignore these little messengers that, you know, the body has had enough, that the mind is tired, it's asking for rest, and we don't allow ourselves to do that. So being boundaried around how we use our mental resources or physical resources, it matters. And you wouldn't expect a car to run around on empty and be like, yeah, top performance. Like, even if you're in like the most expensive sports car, if you don't look after that car, it's not going to work as well. Everybody knows that. Nobody would argue with that. Yet when we apply that to a body or a high achieving person, we think, oh, just train harder, push harder, work more, get the best out of them. And then the mind is like, oh, I'm not into this. And that's when you get like the burnout and the lack of interest. And it's really just because like the whole picture wasn't considered. You know?
And we don't know how to consider the whole picture, because when we're young, we just cared about doing the right thing. And our parents taught us what they thought was the right thing. And so I think we're all collectively healing from having parents who just try to do their best, but maybe don't necessarily have the blueprint on emphasizing what we're all struggling with now, which I speak for myself, which is autonomy, which is the boundary, which is knowing what's right for me, because I'm so, you know, and that was the question that I had for you. You talk about it on your Instagram here with psychologist Dr. M, therapist. Where does people pleasing start? Because do you feel like boundaries and people pleasing have a relationship?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think almost anything has a relationship with boundaries if you really break it down. And I think different people grew up in different households where there are different expectations, there's different feelings, and people are, I mean, at the core of it, resilient and adaptive. You know, that a lot of these responses, I see it on Instagram described as like a trauma response, which I'm not sure I agree with in all instances, but it's an adaptive response. You know, for example, if there's chaos or upheaval, or if you're only, you know, rewarded for being good, or if you only get attention for doing things right or being perfect, you're going to want more of that, because everybody wants their parents' love and approval. Like, it's basic. You can be a colossal failure as a parent. As long as you love your kids, they will forgive a whole heck of a lot. And I think we forget that, you know? And so I see it a lot in high achieving clients. There's this need to do the right thing and to make the perfect choice, and a lot of deliberation around that. And there is no perfect choice, but they're living their life as if, you know, if I go to this, if I study well, then I'll go to this school and I'll get this job, and then I'll get that first job at that big firm, and that'll be important and meaningful. And then I'll have this person who looks on paper perfect, and we will take our perfect little life and be the amazing power couple, and everyone will love us, and I will finally get all the love and approval that I've always wanted. And then they get there on that journey, perfect CV, perfect partner, perfect house, and they're miserable at the core of it. They hate their job. They resent their education. They resent their parents. They realize, I've just spent my whole decade trying to make people happy because I thought their happiness was my happiness. And now I don't know what makes me happy. And that's something I see a lot, that relationship between pleasing other people to get love.
And it's a dangerous cycle, because we as a society look up to those successful, high achieving, overachieving, who are then giving advice on how they got it done. Do you see how the danger can be cyclical, where we look at, you know, society puts on a pedestal fame, money, good looks. How'd you do it? What'd you do? Oh, here's the advice. Here's my advice, and they're getting paid, gajillions of dollars because they're in a job where they're getting paid. That is probably, maybe, not probably, but perhaps possible that they don't even like what they're doing. So they're selling everybody a bill of goods.
Absolutely. Well, it's amazing how much, like we study marketing a little bit. We study in the course of, an undergraduate degree in psychology, message framing. And now on the other side of it, when you see how much of like the beauty industry, I think it's heavy on women, but it's prevalent on men. But anytime I turn like a glossy magazine and I'm just like, yes, you will be happy when you have this watch, this handbag, this house, this partner, those teeth. Oh, maybe it's the abs. Oh, definitely, some expensive designer footwear. Once you have all of this, then
you're fine.
Then you'll be fine and you'll be happy. And then people end up with a lot of stuff and they're like, didn't fix the problem. And now I have another problem that, the debit card has expired. So it's, you can't buy happiness, and you can't, but everything is positioned that you will like yourself more, or you will be more likable as a person. Just going back to that idea is like everybody just wants love and approval, and any perceived flaw, okay, laser that off. Okay, fix your eye color. Okay, get a bigger bum. Okay, it doesn't fix the issue. The issue is still there.
Yeah.
I think this is really dangerous, because I read one time, it was in a meditation book. I can't now recall which one, but the tagline of the book was, a shopping mall full of Buddhists will go bust. And American consumerism drives that, and people are so desperate to get rid of their insecurities and their hangups and their perceived faults and failures, and they'll pay a lot of money to get rid of them. But they're not going anywhere. But it's incredibly profitable to keep feeding people that. And that's something I think we have to kind of be aware of in our space of healing, because we tell these little white lies to ourselves. And, I hear it in my friends, I hear it in like other social groups. Is like, yeah, we'll be happy once we have that holiday, or we'll be happy once we have this. And everyone's delaying their happiness.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
just...
That's right. They're externally validated, like you said, through, that was maybe how they were raised. I had that a lot, as an athlete, it's in your DNA, the performance thing, where if you're not first, you feel like you're last. And so the mind of the athlete, although incredibly strong and, focused, what are they there for? Are they even happy? Do they love it? And that goes for any industry, of course. Because like you said, we look at excellence and we put a price tag on it. And we don't even know if we're absorbing that person's body dysmorphia, who somehow appear very happy in an over-filtered photo on Instagram, but they're taking a lot of time to filter their picture on Instagram. So, is that happiness? Who knows? But I know I don't have a lot of time with you. I did want to ask you a couple other questions really quickly. What do you do for self-care as as someone who advises, and you see a lot of clients, a lot of high achieving clients? What is something that you do to take better care of yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you have to ask yourself, like, what matters? Like, what matters to you? Fast forward, what experiences do you want? And self-care is going to look different. It's not, I see it on social media, and sometimes people are like, oh, just have a bubble bath and all your anxiety will dissolve. And you're like, okay, maybe some of it will, and the bubble bath will be a really nice experience, and you should definitely have that. But But if baths don't do it for you, then don't go there. For me, it's actually sports that I was always super sporty, and making time to exercise and look after myself like matters. And mindfulness, that is, I really struggle with that because I'm like, go, go, go. I'm doing 100 things at once and too many balls in the air. And for me to like catch them all and say, no, this is for me, is exactly kind of like that brain pause that you need. You just need to say like, okay, I'm out of empathy today. I need to be mindful of that before I enter my family space and bite somebody's head off, you know, or I had a really tough day. I need to call a supervisor. I need to process this before I even set foot at home. So kind of being mindful of what I'm taking on board and how I choose to release it. That's kind of my self-care.
And I'm sure a lot of compassion in there, because it's when you go, I don't have a lot of empathy. That's still okay based on, you know, what you're going through. So
yeah, it's not like an empathy well. And after the years that we've had, I mean, every therapist I know has had to reduce the caseload. Everything, you know. And that's really unfortunate because everybody I know needs a therapist as well.
I mean, and it's not a laughing matter, but it is, because people that don't think they need it probably need it more than any, you know, more than everybody. But
yeah.
I appreciate your work that you do. Thank you for being a platform dedicated to helping others heal. I had so many other questions, but just go to her Instagram, because her Instagram is a plethora of beautiful knowledge, tiny ways to heal. Wanted to talk about that because we all need it right now. If people want to get in touch, how can they find you really quickly, Dr. M?
Yep. So all the links are on my Instagram page for contact me. I'm not for one-to-one therapy. My wait list is, like I said, everyone is at capacity. It's closed at the moment because of need. But if there are any questions about therapy or referrals in the UK, I'm happy to help with that. So really, thank you for having me on and for raising the platform for mental health. I think it's really important that we all talk about it. And the more I think we start to talk about our struggles, all of us, and that struggles are okay and normal and healthy, I think people will learn to relate to them differently and not shut down and hide. And that's probably one of the most important things we can do, is just to raise awareness and share good tools and strategies for how to get out of funks.
Yeah. And thank you. You know, your page resonates with me. It makes me feel less alone. And I think you're right. We all need to give a little bit more permission that it's okay if you are struggling, and that there are resources out there that can help. So Dr. M, you're incredible. Thank you for making time. And I hope I get to see you soon, one of these days, but amazing work. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Bye, everybody. Bye, guys.